that could solve the problems that we have. So I would just encourage people not to lose hope, but to turn their focus away from the controlled corporations who are only giving us technology in a controlled fashion, and look to people like this young community down there in Ashland that has viable solutions. There are solutions out there.
Well, that's what I was about to say. We've got to stop using the big mega banks. We've got to start using local banks and credit unions. We've got to abolish the money monopoly power of the private Federal Reserve and get the currency back under the U.S. government control and create state banks and alternative state currencies that's in the Constitution, or local barter economies. We've got to stop eating GMO. We've got to support the local businesses. We've got to shop at secondhand stores for clothes and Goodwill that sometimes has the coolest stuff ever. We've got to stop buying whatever the big corporate plastic culture hype is and be ourselves and true individuals. That's how the globalists can't control us. Everything they do is about trying to force us into their controlled parameters and the fake choices that they give us that are no choices at all. We've got to start organic gardening ourselves. We've got to start even with small steps, little things, and getting to know our neighbors and not watching as much mainline television. And all of this coming out of the system because it's all about, again, forcing us into this artificial habitat, controlling us. I wanted to ask you about this. New Jersey, Arkansas, other states, now that cities all over the U.S. and Europe and Canada and Australia, New Zealand are saying we're not going to put toxic fluoride and other chemicals that the toxic waste companies sell us and make us pay for with their lobbyists in our water. The states are coming in and saying it's the law you'll drink this substance. And now California says we'll give your kids shots even if you don't say they can. We'll do it. I mean, they're really showing who they are, showing that they know there's a rebellion taking place. Can you speak to that?
What? It's exactly what you're talking about, how they're going to make our decisions and control us, and they're going to shove this poison down us whether we want it or not. Wow. Those are amazing things. And to think that they're happening here in a country that considers itself the land of the free, it's just outrageous. Yeah, I had to, when I was a teacher years ago, I had to bump into this. The government was trying to get me to report on what parents had not gotten shots for their children. And I was like thinking to myself, who made me a policeman for the world order, you know?
Yeah, that's indentured servitude.
Yeah, yeah. They're getting a free policeman out of the teachers. And my son was going to Christian parochial school, and the teacher was having the students, this was, he was 14, the teacher was having the students spy, this was back in 1990, was having the students spy on their parents, keep secret journals. This was in a Christian parochial school, and they were not, and the parents were not to be informed of this. And I caught wind of it, and I asked her, well, who told you to do this? Well, they're teaching the Christian teachers in state-run schools. To become certified as a teacher, you have to go through a state program, and they teach them to spy.
Now, that sounds incredible, but this is in my film, The Takeover, now out for 12 years. We have the documents and the news articles. When I first saw it, I didn't believe it. All over the country, they have 6-month programs in 6th and 7th grade. I remember when I was in high school, I didn't take it, called law enforcement in intermediate school, in public school, but it's also in private. And then they have other programs where a local deputy is certified by ATF, and it says they'll have access to the kids on the playground, all this other stuff. And they have them writing journals about their family life for the police. What's in the medicine cabinet? They give them cards and say you get money put on this when you turn people in for stuff. What's mommy doing? And now it's across the board this is going on in the government training centers, and they're being public about it. And remember 2 years ago, Philadelphia, and it turned out other cities, Sacramento, the laptops, the free laptops that taxpayers pay for, were watching the kids at home, and the schools announced it, and nobody got in trouble, and this is the new way they do it. And now they're putting cameras from Tennessee to you name it in the showers at the public schools, saying we must watch your children, something might happen. So they're just training us. TSA will grope your daughters and sons and wives. We will watch your daughters in the showers. We will tell them to spy on you. We will frisk them in the school. I mean, we're just being taught to be total prisoners. The whole country, the whole world is turning incrementally into a giant re-education camp.
Yes, and then they're going to shove down what kind of poisonous water they want. They're going to give us what kind of food with poisons that they want, all in order to keep us weak and unhealthy, because we're easier to control when we're not healthy. Yeah, it should outrage people.
Well, again, they had a more incremental timeline. I know you concur with this in your analysis, but I want you to speak to this. They wanted more incremental, but they got so behind, and then people started waking up, so now they're accelerating, and it's going to be a wild period, but I don't see it going well for them. Fritz, your view on that?
They've had their ups and downs. Things did get slowed down. They initially were on the fast track, and then they switched to the slow track, which their slow track is way too fast for me. And I don't know where we are. I know that they're scrambling to with their backup plans, but they have such enormous amount of power. The thing that keeps me going is I have faith in a good higher power, that I know that whatever they do, they're being allowed to do. It's like Christ before, when he was standing trial that last day, he said, unless this power was given to you by God, you wouldn't have the power. And so I rest in that assurance that eventually, God's going to bring good out of everything. But like you say, we as good, decent people need to stand up for what's right. It's not even an issue of whether we're going to succeed or fail, but it's an issue of what does a good person do when they're confronted with the government demanding that they drink poison, that the government demanding that their kids be groped and spied on when they're in the bathroom, that the government demands that we acquiesce to their tyranny.
Well, you're right, Fritz, and we've been talking here about 15 minutes, and I've got a lot of questions and comments about the Illuminati and things that are happening in the news. But what's on your mind today? What's on your heart today? I mean, you've got the floor for the next 15 minutes, Fritz. I'm going to let you roll on key issues of understanding that you think people should know.
I think while we along the lines that we've been talking about, I'll just reiterate that where we're going, people don't even see as a problem. They're just naturally going along with the flow of things, and that is to tie everything, every activity of our life is going to be tied in to the beast computer through their internet system, where you don't do anything in life without it being connected to the internet. And we're all going along with that. Even this program is, they have made things so easy for us by use of the internet, but we have to understand that there's a catch to all of this. We have to have our guard up, because they're not giving us this technology and allowing us to use this without taking something away from us. They're giving with one hand and taking away with the other. And so we have to have our eyes wide open that there is an agenda of control, just like you've been describing. When it comes to the book, one of the things that came to my mind was address one of the criticisms that over the years, people have said, oh, Springmeier got the names wrong on the families. Well, that's interesting. How did I come about knowing what were the primary Illuminati families? Well, I started working in 1991 with some people that had been teamed together in the Illuminati that were trying to come out. And I gave them a list, a printout of powerful families, and said, would you circle the top 13? And they circled one, this wasn't even on the list to circle. For instance, the Van Dyne family. Well, the Van Dyne name didn't mean anything to me. I had heard of Van Dyne candy, but beyond that, it didn't mean anything to me. But when they tipped me off about this, then I discovered that, yes, if you go back in Dutch history, the Dutch had something called the Ridderschap. Ridderschap was a group of nobility that met periodically. And one of the few families that had been powerful down through many centuries was the Van der Dyne family. So the kind of information that they passed to me, I started confirming in some incredible ways. Therapists, for instance, I think of one therapist in California, but there were others, called me up and said, Fritz, we are so appreciative that you expose the Van Dyne family, because I have a client that's coming to me that said that they were in the Van Dyne Illuminati family, and I had nothing to make any sense of what they were saying until I saw your book. So while there's people out there saying, wow, this is wild stuff that Springmeier's saying, I can assure you that the information that you're going to read in that book has been verified many times over by just so much feedback that I've gotten. That book came out originally in 1995, and so I've had 15 years of feedback from people out there. And you've heard Alex Jones talk about how, he got the book, and initially it was like, the impression was, wow, this is like way out there. And then once you're aware of the possibilities of things, you start realizing, okay, here's the proof of this, here's the proof of that. Okay, I'm seeing that for myself. And so there's been a lot of years for me to see that the information that I was researched back in this book was researched back in about 91 to 93. So it's almost 20 years. This information has stood the test of time.
Sure. I would say, generally, it's all in the right direction. We know and confirm most of it's true. Nobody's perfect, but it's a really important work. Now, looking at this, I just want to interrupt once. On page 35, the Fabian Society of Communism. I remember reading, Fritz says that their crest, their royal crest, this is like the heart of the New World Order, as you know, the Rhodes Scholars, all of it, socialism for the elite to make us dependent, a form of feudalism. And then later I separately saw in a mainline publication that indeed, again, that their crest really is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Wow, what a wicked crest. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the Fabian socialists tie in with, for instance, the Astor family was big into that. And you start seeing connections between the Fabian socialists and a lot of things. People like H.G. Wells, George Orwell, and so forth, we think of them as being against the New World Order because H.G. Wells wrote so much that seems to expose it. No, these people were actually socialists, Fabian socialist types that were in favor of it. And in contrast with us thinking that they're writing these things to expose it, they're writing these things how it can come about. They're conditioning us to accept what's coming down the line. Really,